Hi, how you doing? So welcome to this week's One Image My Edit, and this week I'm going to be showing you how to create this really lovely sort of deep brown tones to your images. So you can see that from last week we done deep brown. This week I'm going to kind of do a matte brown effect, and it gives you this lovely chocolate effect to your images, and you can see what it does, especially to the yellows, and this image has a lot of yellows, a lot of beige within it. So the idea with this preset is to bring out texture. We can see here along the wood, you can see that these lovely textures are starting to come out along the plates, along the silverware. What we're doing in essence is just bringing out a little bit more clarity and a little bit more texture, and then adding a sort of chocolate brown tone to everything, and I think it can look really, really nice, give your images a very specific look. If we look at the before and after, you can see what this is doing. And in the original, you can see that there is obviously a lot of yellow, a lot of orange on that spectrum, so you've got a lovely warm sunlight, and what we're doing is just manipulating that into a more desaturated color and into a more chocolate brown effect, and I think it looks really, really cool. So I'm going to walk you through the process on this. So I'm just going to reset. There we go. And there may be a few steps in this that you've not done before, so just bear with me, but follow along. It's really simple, but like I said, there might be some things that you might discover. So the first thing I'm going to do is come up to the profile. So the minute we're on color, we can obviously go to monochrome, which is your black and white. But I'm going to click on browse. If you click on browse, then you will probably come across something you've not seen before. So we've got basically some presets, and they're not the same as presets. These are kind of more sort of LUTs, so to speak. There is a lot within here that you can choose from. Now these are really, really good starting points. So what I'm going to do is go to vintage, and I'm going to select vintage 1, and I'm going to put the amount up to 200. Okay, and then I'm going to click on close. So that is our starting profile, which is quite good. I'm going to bring the tint down to around -10 just to have a little bit more of a green tint within the actual shot. So the basics of it, the contrast, the highlights, the shadows, the whites and the blacks, are very, very simple. We're going to bring the contrast down to -40 just because we want to flatten the image and give that matte effect. Okay, that's going to help us do that. Our highlights we're going to push up to +20, and the shadows we're going to push up to +40. Again, doing this means that we're just flattening the image a little bit. Whites we're going to bring down to -50. Okay, and the blacks we're going to push them up to +40. So what we're doing is just making them lighter. So if we look at just that as a before and after, you can see there that we've got the starting and workings of this sort of matte effect. It's already started to appear. Okay, so a very simple process for just doing that. And if you wanted to go on and create an image that looks different, then this would be a really good starting point. You could then ignore the rest that I'm doing and just play around yourself with these different settings, and you will get a very unique look. Okay, so this is a really good base to start from. So let's have a look then at the clarity and the dehaze and the vibrance, all this around here in the presence section here. So clarity, I'm going to push that up just a little bit to about 20. I don't want to go too far with that. Same with the dehaze, I'm going to push that up to about 20. Nothing too major on there. So I'm going to bring the vibrance down a little bit, and that's just because I want to take the sting out of some of these colors. So I'm just going to bring that down to about -10, and the saturation that's going to do a lot as well, because you can see here as I'm moving this, if I bring this right down to around -25, 30, that's helped as well. That's really taken all that color out of the image. And again, if we look at that as a before and after already, we can see there we're starting to get that lovely matte effect, and the chocolate effect is starting to come through a little bit, isn't it? So the next thing then is coming to the tone curve, and what I want to do is just give this a little bit of an S curve. So I'm going to click 3 points there. I'm going to come down to the bottom, and I'm just going to bring the blacks down a little bit here. So we've got a little bit of a steep curve coming up, I'm just going to push these midtones up a little bit, and also these whites, I'm just going to push them up a little bit. So that's around there. That works pretty well. Again, depending on your image would determine how much you've got to adjust that, but that's a really good starting point. Now I just want to copy that across all the colors. So I'm going to right click, I'm going to copy channel settings, I'm going to go to the red, right click again and paste, and I'm just going to do that on the other two. So there we go. Now we've got a real uniform adjustment across all of the colors and all of the shades there. So that's looking pretty good. If we just look at that as a before and after, you can see what that's done. It's really given us our contrast back and makes the image pop a little bit more. Okay, so getting to the colors then, we're going to work within the hues saturation, and we're not going to do much with the luminance. So the hues, if we click on the hues here, so I'm going to bring the reds down to about -70, around that spectrum. The reason why I'm going so much on this is because there is a lot of red in this picture. So I'm just bringing that down so it goes more into the red section rather than the actual orange. Okay, the orange again, I'm going to bring that down to -10, so not that much, just pushing that into that spectrum there, into that orange. And the yellows, I always like to push my yellows into the orange spectrum. I think it just looks better. That looks pretty good. Again, if we just look at that as before and after, you can see what that's done. Okay. Now the saturation, this is where most of the work's going to take place. So let's push the reds up to +20, and then the orange -20, just to bring that out a little bit. The yellows, there is a lot of yellow, so I'm going to go to -80 on that. And then the rest of them, I think, are going to bring them down to about -20 each. So we're just stripping the majority of colors away, and that's just helping us produce that matte effect. So you can see there, I've just put them down to -20, but the main colors that I'm working with in here are pretty much okay. The luminance, we could go and add maybe +10 in the orange. Here we go, and maybe just -5 on the yellow there, and -5 on the red. You don't have to do that. I'm just doing that because of this picture. It's got a lot of red in it and a lot of orange and yellow, so I'm just wanting to balance that out a little bit there. Okay, right, let's come on to the color grading then. So I'm going to click on global, which is the end circle there. So I'm going to make a global adjustment. I'm going to put a hue of around 50. There we go. So we've got a nice warm tinge there. And saturation, I'm going to push this to about 15. There we go. So we're just adding a little bit of yellow into this, into the global adjustment. Then what we're going to do is, let's jump over to the highlights. I'm going to do a hue of around 215, 216. That's 215 is my favorite blue, and a saturation of about 10. So I'm just going to push this up. Now again, every week I do show this, so you can see that I'm struggling to actually pinpoint the numbers there. So you can just double click and type it in, which is what I usually like to do. It just means it's more precise and you haven't got to worry about trying to find them perfect numbers. So I'm going to skip the midtones, go to the shadows, and the shadows I'm going to do a hue of 50. So I'm just going to type this one in, and a saturation about 12. That's quite good. Here we go. So again, we can see there we're adding a yellow, and in the highlights we're adding a blue, and then the global adjustment we're adding a yellow tinge there, and that's what's going to give us, you can see here what that's doing. That's giving us a bit of a coffee look there, which is quite nice, and it just warms it up, brings back some of the colors, so it's not an actual color pop, because previous there it looks like a color pop, meaning that there's no color in it. But just adding a little bit of global and highlights, shadows, some colors in there, it just brings it back to life a little bit. You can see there what that's doing. So whenever we're doing stuff like this, we always want to think about noise reduction. So I'm going to go up to 20 on the noise reduction, And in the color, I'm going to push that up to 20 as well. There we go. I'm going to leave the rest, so detail and smoothness all at 50. That's absolutely fine. And that is pretty much it. So if we now press the Y key, there we go, you can see there's the before and after. Now you can see that we've got this lovely chocolate effect. Now what you can do is come up to the exposure, and depending on your image, you can always darken it a little bit. I think it's quite nice to darken it. I mean, I've gone to -0.20 there. That just helps with the blacks of the shadows, and you can push these blacks down a little bit as well if you want to, just to deepen them shadows, but don't go too much, otherwise you'll flatten the image out. But that's how you do it. That's how you get this sort of lovely chocolate brown effect to your images. It can look really, really nice, and depending on what you're photographing, will determine how this effect is perceived. You can use this on portraits. It works really well with animal portraits, especially if they've got a really nice sort of beige fur. Then it works really, really well. Brings out their eyes and brings out lots of the texture within the fur as well. So use this, use this on different things and see how you get on. It can work really nice with flowers as well, but you just have to be careful with the amount of colours that are in the image. You want a primary colour, and then the rest to be either a soft white or a soft beige background. Okay, so I hope that's helped. I look forward to seeing this on your images. I'll see you in the next video. Take care. Bye bye.